Welcome to the North Coast News Network Newsroom. I'm Leon Russell, and today is October 10th. We have at least one person that has sticky fingers, and a couple of videos of police getting upset. Well, they'll have to learn to live with it.
New at 5, this woman is charged tonight with theft of the elderly, $2,500 to $30,000 worth of jewelry.
San Antonio police say Priscilla Mitchell is suspected in a handful of other cases that they know about, and possibly even more they don't. They say she targeted seniors with dementia and memory loss, the nursing facilities where she worked.
Jesse Degollado tells us that the daughter of one of the victims credits the facility where her father has been for helping SAPD make the arrest.
Darwin Dunlap wasn't smiling when he first told his daughter something was missing. Then she asked,
"Dad, where's your ring?" And he looked down at his hand and he said, "I don't know."
Now facing 2 felony theft charges, San Antonio police say 29-year-old Priscilla Mitchell allegedly stole his wedding band. She'd been a recent hire at the memory care community on Stone Oak where Dunlap lives, and she's suspected in a theft at this facility where a diamond-studded wedding ring was taken off an 85-year-old woman with dementia. Mitchell also is under investigation in 4 similar criminal cases, and possibly more to come.
Not that you would, but if you could, what would you say to this woman?
Just why? Why would you do that?
Among the best ways for families to protect vulnerable loved ones, according to AARP Texas, do your research, check their quality record, and how the facility handles cases of theft, and if there's a high staff turnover.
If you have a lot of people coming in and out of the facility and turning over, that makes theft easier to occur.
Families, she says, expect that loved ones like Darwin Dunlap and their belongings will be kept safe.
It's really important that facilities hold true to that commitment.
Now wearing the wedding band that he wore when he married his wife of 51 years.
He was comforted that he had it back. So that meant everything. It was something to see that recognition in his eyes.
Jesse Degollado, KSAT 12 News.
SAPD is urging anyone who thinks that they may have been a victim as well to contact the Property Crimes Unit. We have information about how you can try to protect your loved ones meantime from thefts. That's on our website, ksat.com.
And Mr. Moore, whom do you wish to call?
Judge Conworth would call Lieutenant McLeod.
Thank you. As you're doing so, counsel, if you would each double check the courtroom and keep a cautious watch to make sure that there are no witnesses that are not allowed to hear the testimony of others. Thank you. If you come forward, please, to the witness stand. And would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm any testimony you may give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may be seated. Would you answer first, please, the questions of Mr. Moore, and then any that Mr. Foreman may have?
Yes.
State your name and employment for the record, please.
Branson McLeod. I work with the City of Radcliffe Police Department.
All right. And how long have you been a police officer?
18 years.
All with Radcliffe?
Yes.
All right. And what training had you had as a police officer?
I took an initial basic police officer's course when I got hired in 1997, and that was 10 weeks long. And then subsequent to that, back at the department, that was with the Department of Criminal Justice Training. And then at the department, I took 14 weeks of training with a field training officer. Every year, we're required to have at least 40 hours of training to stay qualified as a police officer, and that's at least 40 hours. Many years I've had more than the 40 hours of training.
Are you trained specifically in DUI investigations?
Yes.
All right. Would you estimate about how many DUI stops you've performed over the years?
Stops?
Yes.
It's in the hundreds. I'd say probably close to 500.
Would you, now how long, you're Lieutenant McLeod, is that right?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been lieutenant?
I got promoted to lieutenant in 2008.
Would you describe your contact with the defendant on May 30th of last year?
Yes, I was on what we call the third shift. At that time, it was 2100, 9 p.m. till 7 in the morning. There was also another shift that we overlapped with that was there from 9 to 2 in the morning. There were 2 shifts on. So at this time, it was just my shift. The earlier shift that we overlapped with was gone. We received a call that there was a loud music disturbance complaint. I don't have the address in front of me. If I could refer to the citation, I don't know, but we responded to the address.
Objection, Judge.
Without objection, you may use it to refresh.
Address of the complaint, which was, well, I don't even think I have it on here. I think the council already mentioned 1404, I believe it was, West Lincoln Trail. It was an apartment building. I think it's like a fourplex. There's 4 separate residences there. We arrived there, myself and Officer Sutherland. We were the 2 officers dispatched. I stayed out on the sidewalk by the front window of the apartment. Officer Sutherland had to go around the corner where the door was, so she was basically out of my sight. The window I was standing in front of was open. It had a screen there. Blinds were open. I could see several individuals sitting inside. I could see bottles of alcohol, cups, etc., sitting inside. I could hear Officer Sutherland knock on the door. She explained that the noise was excessive again. We knew that there had been a prior call.
You were not on that call, were you?
No, it was prior to, we were on shift, but I wasn't aware of the outcome of the call. I had heard that the call was there, but the other shift had responded. I heard her explain to them that it was loud and the neighbors had called and that it needed to discontinue being loud. At that point, there was a male who identified himself by saying, this is my apartment, and he looked into the apartment and started yelling at everybody, you know, this has got to stop, y'all have to go. So we never initiated an action that said anybody had to go. We just said it needed to be quiet. Our next step would have been a criminal offense of disorderly conduct, and we'd have charged somebody with a disorderly conduct. We didn't do that.
Okay, so you heard, you didn't go to the door, but Officer Sutherland went to the door. Okay. And you heard her knock.
Right.
Okay. And were you able to see her, or you said she was around the corner?
As soon as you turn the corner, the door's right there. I couldn't see her unless she stepped back from the door.
All right. Now, you heard her tell somebody, do you know, was it the first person that came to the door or the person whose apartment it was?
Somebody answered the door. I don't know who it was.
Did she explain the noise problem to that person or to the other occupant that came forward, or do you know?
She was explaining to whoever, I don't know who she was talking to specifically.
Okay.
But someone did step out. There was a male that stepped out, and he identified himself as the resident there.
Okay. And you were able to hear that conversation?
Yes.
Okay. And did Officer Sutherland tell them to do anything other than keep the noise down?
No.
Okay. All right. She didn't tell them your people have to leave, get the hell out, or anything along those lines?
No.
All right. Now, you said you were beside an open window. Did you speak to anybody through the window?
Yes.
Okay. What? Tell us about that.
Mr. Symington, I found out later who that was sitting there at the table next to the window. There were several people sitting there. From what I recall, when Officer Sutherland knocked on the door, that person sitting there, I didn't know who it was at the time, said, "You don't have to open the door." And I made a comment into the window that it's the police, you all need to open the door. And that's when somebody came to the door for Officer Sutherland.
Okay. But was he talking, he wasn't talking to you, you just heard that said through the window?
No, he didn't even know I was standing there, as far as I could tell.
All right. Did he or anyone else that you recall say, they can't kick us out?
No, I don't recall anybody saying that.
Did you hear anyone ask Officer Sutherland or yourself if they could stay?
No, no one asked me anything. As far as I know, no one asked Officer Sutherland that.
And you didn't ask anyone to leave, did you?
No.
All right. All right. Describe, you said whoever it was who was speaking to Officer Sutherland began telling people.
The male came out, he says, "This is my apartment," and he turned back towards the door and started telling people, "This has got to, the party's over, everybody's got to go." And he was telling people, "Get out, get out, get out." And we just stood there for a couple minutes, and he promised to make sure it wasn't going to be loud, so we were departing.
And describe what you did and observed after that.
Well, he started telling people to get out, and a couple people left. Not everybody. There were still people in there. And I was walking back to my vehicle. Officer Sutherland was now in front of the apartment, kind of where I was at the beginning. And she was just standing there watching people. I got in my vehicle. Just as I was getting in it, a vehicle drove out of the parking lot, and I recognized it was the subject that had been sitting at the table in the apartment.
Okay. Now, was this the only vehicle you observed leaving?
Yes.
Okay. You said a couple of people were leaving. Do you know if they walked away or got in a different vehicle or got in this vehicle, or do you know?
Well, I was parked, there's like a driveway at this apartment building, and then it goes back behind the building and there's a parking lot. So I couldn't see anything. People walked out and they went around behind the building. So I don't know where they went or what they did.
Okay. But you observed this vehicle, which I guess was near yours, on your side, on that side of the building.
No, it came from back to that parking lot.
Oh, it came from back there. Okay. All right. And so you were able to see that the person driving it was one of the individuals that had...
Right, my headlights were on my vehicle, and just as I was getting in, he drove right by me and kind of gave me a glare, so...
Okay, you saw that it was the defendant? Yeah. Okay, what'd you do next?
I backed up, the vehicle pulled out, it made a right turn onto Lincoln Trail Boulevard, heading towards Logston Parkway or 31W. I backed out of the driveway and followed the vehicle.
And describe what you did next. What you saw, what you did.
The vehicle went to Lincoln Trail Boulevard, Logston Boulevard, and made a left turn going north on Logston. I think the total distance we traveled may have been a mile or less, and then the vehicle made a right-hand turn and failed to signal that right-hand turn into a residential parking lot at 680 North Logston Parkway.
Was this a house or apartment complex? Or?
It looked like a house, but it was divided into apartments. They pulled into that. As they pulled in without using their turn signal, I initiated my emergency equipment and conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle.
And the driver of the vehicle was this defendant, is that correct?
Right. Mr. Symington was identified using his driver's license that he gave me.
And what you've been described happening occurred in Hardin County, Kentucky, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Go ahead and describe what you did next, as far as did you observe anything when you made contact with him?
I approached the vehicle on foot to the driver's window. Window was down. I introduced myself to the driver. I told him why I had stopped him, and I asked for his driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. He did produce those items. I asked him if the address on his driver's license was correct. He stated it was not, that he lived at the address where we had pulled into. Actually, that 680 North Logston, apartment B, and his driver's license had an address I don't even recall where it was, but he related he hadn't lived at that address for about a year. I asked him to exit. During that conversation, though, I did detect the odor of alcoholic beverages coming from the vehicle. I could smell it. Asked him to exit the vehicle. I did notice there were other occupants in the vehicle. I don't recall how many, but there was at least one person in the front passenger seat, and there was at least one in the rear passenger seat. There may have been two in the rear passenger seat, I don't recall. I asked him to exit the vehicle. We went around to the rear of the vehicle. I explained to him that I would like him to perform some field sobriety tests. I asked him if
Let me ask you this, let me interrupt you. When you got him out of the vehicle, did you still smell the odor of alcoholic beverages?
Yes, when I conversed with him outside the vehicle, it was coming directly from him.
And so you asked him to go around to the back and for field sobriety tests, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And did you ask, what field sobriety tests did you ask him to perform?
Well, first I asked him had he had anything to drink.
Okay.
Normally I ask in the last 10 minutes. And he said he had drank some wine, and that was it. Then we conducted field sobriety tests. What was the question about that again? I'm sorry.
What field sobriety test did you ask him to do?
We conducted the one-leg stand, is what it's called, and the walk and turn.
And how did he do on those?
He did not show any indicators to me that would have caused a great concern to me.
So he did fairly well on those tests?
Yes.
Okay, not enough for you to note that he did not do well on those tests?
Correct.
Okay. So did you make any observations other than the odor of alcohol?
His eyes were very red bloodshot. That was one indicator of under the influence. And he had slurred speech when he would speak. It wasn't crisp and clear type of a language. It was a little bit slurred. You could tell that there possibly was alcohol involved.
Okay. All right. And did you place him under arrest for driving under the influence?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you transport him back to, where did you transport him to?
In my vehicle, back to the Radcliffe Police Department. That's where we have where he was offered a breath test at that time.
All right. Now, did you perform the intoxilizer test?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right. Who did that?
Officer Sutherland.
All right. And let's see. Did you note a time of observation that was begun by Officer Sutherland?
Yes.
Okay. And did you make a notation of that anywhere?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Where?
There's an evidence card that we use. It's supplied by the Kentucky State Police, and we use that card in the intoxilizer. That's the instrument that tests the breath. And on that card, there's spaces at the bottom, and we're required to get a time off of the instrument and record that on the bottom of that card in handwriting. And you normally write observation began, and you put that time down off of the instrument when the subject arrives for the test. So you have an observation period prior to administering the test.
All right. So you made that notation on that slip, is that correct?
I did.
Okay. Even though you did not ultimately give the test or
That's correct.
the breath test to the defendant. Okay. And so who observed the defendant?
Officer Sutherland.
Okay. And were you all right there together when this was happening?
We're in the same room, yes.
All right. During the observation period?
Yes.
All right. Now, were you there in the same area to where you know whether or not Officer Sutherland read the implied consent to the defendant?
Yes, I was right there.
And did you have any participation in the implied consent being read?
Yes. When I arrived to the police department with Mr. Symington, Officer Sutherland arrived at the same time. I went in, grabbed the evidence card, put the observation time on that, gave her that card, and I pulled out what's called an implied consent form, and I wrote Mr. Symington's name at the top of it in the block that says name, and I gave that to Officer Sutherland, and she conducted the test from that point on.
I don't think I have any other questions right now.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Can you move the podium a little bit closer? Gail?
Yep. Deputy Runyon, can you assist with the podium? Sorry, I've sent her on an errand.
That's okay. Closer to the middle, if you would, please. That's perfect. Thank you. Lieutenant, my apologies. Lieutenant, do you agree that the main function of the police is to prevent law violations?
No,
No. It's not to prevent law violations.
not the main purpose. That's,
Is it one of the main functions?
yes,
Okay. Do you also agree that an officer or a lieutenant or a commander must follow their instructions and their standards of procedure?
yes,
Would you also agree with me that you were trained at some point that if you see someone that is violating the law, you are to stop them and conduct an investigation?
well, you're given the tools to see that. I mean, it's officer's discretion usually, what their main purpose at that point might be. Officer may be going to a call that doesn't allow to stop someone speeding. You got to look at what's more important, maybe.
But if you see a violation being committed in front of you, would you take action or would you ignore it?
If at all possible, I would take action, yes.
Thank you. According to your standard operating procedures, Chapter 5, may I approach the witness, Judge?
You may.
Chapter 5, titled General Operating Procedure.
May we approach?
Yes, counsel may approach.
There's been no foundation laid for this, Judge. I don't know what it is. I don't know if the officer knows what it is. It's not certified. It's not anything. So
This is something I got directly from the Radcliffe Police Department. I mean,
we don't know that.
You can lay the foundation as to if he knows what the document is before he answers question about it. If he has foundation, you can certainly question. Let's see if he does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lieutenant, are you familiar that the Radcliffe Police Department has standards of operating procedure?
Yes.
Have you ever seen them?
I've seen some of them, yes.
Have you ever read them?
Most of them.
Are you familiar with Chapter 5 of the Standard Operating Procedures for the Radcliffe Police Department?
I'm reading over it now. I'm not really sure that I specifically read this or not, but I'm sure I have.
If
this is ours, I don't know. Doesn't say where it came from.
If you could turn to the second page.
Just may we approach?
Counsel could approach.
Judge, I don't think we've established that he can identify this document. The officer can't just take the defense counsel's word for it. He's got to recognize it and be familiar with it in order to testify about it.
Did you have a more complete copy that if the officer looks at it front to back, you can see the signatures?
It's like 300 pages. No, excuse me. It's more than that. It's about 650 pages, Judge. I have it all electronic from Captain Willie Wells at the Radcliffe Police Department.
Let me take a short recess. I'm going to check on the Veterans Treatment Court. The officer says that he doesn't know that if this is his or not. But that way, if I'll use it.
But this is just the general. I'm not looking for the officer to have read the entire book.
But he doesn't have to.
Individual pages are not marked. We don't know what this is from.
So if I take it away from him and just have him testify on it, would that suffice for the court?
If he knows an operating procedure, sure. But at this point, he can't acknowledge the document, so he can't ask questions about a document.
I will simply ask him generally then, and if he does not know, then
he doesn't know. Okay. If he's aware, if he's trained on procedures, sure.
Being asked to testify on a document, he says, I don't know if this is it or not.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Mm-hmm. So I'll let you take that from the witness then.
Thank you. Lieutenant, if I may.
Thank you.
Section 512.12, and stop me if you are unfamiliar with this, deals with public nuisances. It states, public nuisances. These violations are usually...
You can ask questions of the officer rather than reading from the document yourself.
Very well,
If they're aware
Judge.
of the procedures and what they're aware of about the procedures would be very appropriate.
Are you aware, Lieutenant, that when there is a noise violation, one of your protocols is to have a verbal request for correction?
Okay, yes.
Or the other alternative is going through a legal process?
Okay, could you
Such
ask
as
the
bringing
question
them to
again?
I'm sorry, such as bringing them to court or issuing a citation, giving them a warning, some type of either verbal or legal action can be taken by you as an officer of the law if someone commits a civil
That can be done
violation.
on the initial contact.
I'm sorry?
That could be done on the initial contact. I think your question said.
Can you explain?
You go back to your first question?
You talking about this section, or what are you referring to,
Your
Lieutenant?
question, sir? You
Yes.
had two questions. The first one
My
was-
first question is the verbal request for correction is one. Are you familiar with that?
Yes. I'm not really sure what you're asking me. Exactly. Are you asking, is that what we normally do on a first contact?
If
what it
someone
sounded like.
commits a civil violation or a criminal one, in this case, we're talking about a civil one. If there is a noise complaint, okay, one of your protocols is to issue a verbal or a paper request for termination of that nuisance, correct or incorrect?
First of all, I don't agree that this was a civil offense.
It was a criminal one.
Correct.
How was it a criminal one?
It's a disorderly offense.
But they're disrupting the public, right?
They're causing alarm or annoyance, yes.
Thank you. You were radioed by dispatch to come to 1204 West Lincoln Trail Boulevard.
Yes, sir.
And as you've already stated, you were not on the first, this was the second time that somebody was called to that address. There was also a first one. Yes or no?
Yes, correct.
You were on the second call,
Yes.
and you were aware that this was the second call.
I may not have been initially when I got out there, but I learned that when we arrived. I'm not sure exactly when I was aware of that.
You said that the individuals at 1204 West Lincoln Trail Boulevard were causing a ruckus. They were causing, their criminal violation was, your words, disorderly conduct. Correct?
Yeah, I think I did mention that earlier, yes.
Did you issue anyone a citation for disorderly conduct?
No,
Did you arrest anyone for disorderly conduct?
no.
you testified that when you arrived, you saw Mr. Symington through the window sitting at a table.
Yes, I did say that.
And you heard him, this is your testimony now, you heard him say, "Don't open the door. We don't have to open the door." Is that right? Isn't that what you just testified to a moment ago?
Well, not exactly like you said. I said, you don't have to open the door.
You don't have to open the door. It's the police, you don't have to open the door. We got this, right?
You don't have to open the door.
You never heard, "They can't kick us out." That never came out of Mr. Symington's mouth.
I did not hear that, no.
You never said, "Oh, yes, we can,"
No,
to that, responding to that comment.
no.
You were standing outside the house, or were you at your SUV when you saw Mr. Symington exit the door? I don't think we made that very clear.
Well, I'm not real sure. I think I was standing outside the house. I wasn't in my vehicle yet.
You were not in your vehicle yet, but were you walking towards it? Where was your physical?
I was still standing out front. I was on the sidewalk. The window was like right up to the sidewalk. I don't even recall that he passed by me. I mean, I just know I saw a vehicle leaving. And
You did not hear him say any statements, make any statements, or say anything to anyone? That's your testimony here
I did not hear him
today.
make any statements.
Officer, simply by virtue of the fact that this was the second time you were at that location, as you quickly learned, as you just said, you would like to tell these ladies and gentlemen of the jury that a second time a warning to keep quiet was issued?
Well, it was Officer Sullivan's call. I was there for her backup. And unless I see something I need to intervene on, I let the officer make their decisions on what they want to do. Officer Sullivan asked them that they needed to keep it down. This was the second time or not her, but the second time the police had been out there. And the resident came out and agreed that that's what he was going to do, and he started telling people to leave.
And he started saying, "Get out, get out, get out."
Words to that effect, yes.
When you saw Mr. Symington get in his car, or according to you, I believe you said you did not see it specifically, but you saw his car leave, you followed it.
I saw a car leave, and I saw him driving it.
You saw Mr. Symington behind the wheel of a car,
Yes,
and you followed it.
yes.
Thank you. You radioed to dispatch, quote, "I'm going to follow this Mustang. It was the one that appeared to be," I'm not sure what this means, 2301 driving it. What does code 2301 mean?
Drunk.
And yet you did not stop him when you saw him initially, correct?
No.
Despite the fact that you suspected him of being drunk.
Correct.
Aside from the signal violation, just briefly, you did not see any other bad driving?
No, I did not.
He completed all field sobriety tests with no clues?
All that I requested, yes.
All indicative of a sober person?
He did the field sobriety test correctly, but I still believed he was not sober.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
What time did you observe the defendant operating a motor vehicle, or the last time you observed him operating a motor vehicle?
You mean between the time they left the apartment to the time I
You pulled him
stopped him?
over. The time you pulled him over, what time was that?
3:03 in the morning.
Why did you think that he may have been under the influence of alcohol when you radioed in that you were going to follow his vehicle?
Well, I had observed alcohol on the table where he was sitting in cups. And then the comment that he made, you don't have to let him in, was kind of odd.
But you didn't have any direct contact with him, did you?
No, not at that time, I didn't.
And you said you didn't see, when he left the apartment, you knew a couple of people left the apartment. Is that right?
Right, there were several people that left.
Okay. And I believe you testified that this vehicle came from the back parking lot. Is that correct?
From behind the building, yes.
Okay. So at the point you saw him initially, he was sitting in someone's house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next time you saw him was when he passed your vehicle in his vehicle, or in a Mustang.
That's correct.
All right. And is it typical that you have to have a reasonable articulable suspicion to stop someone?
Objection, Judge. Counsel is testifying.
I'll rephrase the question.
I'll allow you to rephrase.
What has to be in place for you to stop someone?
Reasonable suspicion
Of
a
what?
crime, of an offense.
Of an offense. Okay. And so at that point, you pulled him over because of what offense?
He failed to use a turn signal when he made a right-hand turn on his vehicle.
Okay. And so at what point did you initiate a DUI investigation?
When I exited my vehicle and approached him at that time.
Okay.
I mean, it started at the time of the stop.
Okay. Based on your contact with him or what?
Well, based on what I had observed earlier, to include the contact, all those circumstances add up.
Those things justified earlier to the odor of alcohol, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, sir.
Nothing else in this witness?
Do those questions raise others?
No, Judge.
Thank you, sir. You may step down and be seated with counsel. Counsel, I'm going to take about a 10-minute recess for my convenience. We're doing some treatment court staffing. This will give you all the chance to stretch your legs.
Yeah, man. All right, talk to that officer over there. Hey, what's going on, man?
I'm just trying to hurry me get home. I'm tired. I just got off work.
Yeah, where you work at?
Just left my mom's house.
Where at? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get home, man. I'm tired.
Damn, bro, you're living through that neighborhood, man. You call my house, like, man, this is going right now.
Yeah.
So, where you living at?
I stay in the city. I stay over there by the hospital.
Oh, okay. Okay. Governor?
Yeah, yep. Got me an apartment over there.
Okay. Good deal, good deal. Hey, you got your ID?
Yeah,
Can I get that from you, please? Thanks, man.
Yeah, I stay on, my mom stay on 27th Street right there.
Oh, okay.
I just checking on her. She don't be feeling too well, so I just try to make my lap around there, make sure she doing
Right. Yeah, I understand that. You got your registration? And you might as well just get your insurance when you got it.
I've been doing everything.
Hey man, hands! Hands, motherfucker! Hands! You move, I'm gonna shoot your fucking ass, man. You move, I'm gonna fucking blow your head off.
Easy.
Pull his ass out. Pull his ass out. What I do? Fucking move, man. I was gonna get a fucking move, man. What I do? Okay. Yeah, I was giving him my his ass up. Hey! Fucking reach, man.
It's all right. Hey, if everything checks out, you go, okay? Relax. Right now, listen to me. Right now, relax. Bring your hands together.
Look right there.
Stay right there. Bring your hands together.
Look right there. My CPL. Then why didn't you say it, man? You gotta tell us. I was giving you all my. You don't open the center console when your gun's right in that motherfucker. I'm tired, man. Good ass.
All right. Bring your hands together. If everything checks out, you eat. You know what I'm saying?
That was dumb, man.
Hold your, bring your fingers together. Hold your print. There you go. Too tight?
No, you go.
Okay. Alright, just lean forward at the whistle just a little bit so I can get this in here so I don't move on you, alright? Just because you got cuffs on, don't mean you're arrested, you understand?
Yeah, that's cool. I understand it. It's just
Okay.
no problem. I wasn't trying to
do you have anything on you that's going to stick me, poke me, hurt me?
No,
you
nothing.
Don't got any,
Nothing.
No other weapons on you?
Nope. Just that.
Nothing?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm going to bring you back here. I'm going to go ahead and search you, alright?
Okay, yeah, that's
You mind if I search you?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, you can come right here. There we go. Okay, of course. Let's everything right here.
Sorry about that, man. I don't cause no trouble, man.
No more than a lot. Like I said, everything checks out. Everything will be alright. Okay.
You got a valid CPL, man? Yeah, it's right there. Like I was handing them all my stuff. You gotta tell us right away though, man. When you open up the center console, man, you see it. Handle of a gun stand right there.
You got any jacket inside with shirt or with pockets in it?
No, it's my work.
I've been in check.
Go ahead, yeah, it's my work call.
Thanks, man. Figure it out more.
Like I said, when I didn't
All right,
got
good deal.
off
You just want to go to turn around. Can't see that ball. There you go. Stand by right there. Search vehicle.
Yeah, what
y'all got anything else in there? You know, anything like got any other weapons in there? So you're cool, feel it? Okay. Thanks, sir.
It's in the center console there.
That it?
That. Is it expired?
Yeah, no way.
Oh, it's your new one? Driver's license in here? He's got it.
Looks like what 5 miles driver.
Partner, I'm just going to keep this in the vehicle until I'm done. Where would your CPO be? I got it here. You got it? Yeah, okay.
34 that vehicle. 34 going to the mall. On 510.
Come on, ma'am.
I'll call you.
I don't need to go on.
Yeah, you do need to go
Terry,
on.
I'll call you.
You're blocking the road. You're blocking the road, so go.
I don't have to go on.
Yeah, you do.
They put a gun on you. They put a gun on you.
Yep. Have a nice day. All right, have a nice day. Cars to see, man. You're gonna start pulling the cars and doing all kinds of shit. It's okay. Can I go talk to who is that? Can I go talk to who is it? Can I go talk to Mary, it's okay.
They put a gun on him.
Mary.
They can't tell me where to go.
You can't walk right here. You can't walk right here.
You can't tell me where to walk. Do I need to call my lawyer?
Call him.
Sure will.
Mary, you can't walk up on the traffic stop.
Don't tell me where to go. I can walk along the block.
Not on the town where
I can walk down the street. Let me call my lawyer to shit to him.
No.
They can put a gun.
I promise you I'll treat you like I would treat my own family, all right? I appreciate it. All right, thanks. Go ahead and have a seat right here for me, just to keep you out of it, okay? Thank you.
Walk over there.
I can walk this way. Son. They put a gun to your head.
Over here.
Why y'all put a gun to my son's head? That's a good man. That's a good kid. He ain't no trash. Charlene,
I'll pick those up.
what's hard-working young man? So why did I put a gun to his head? When he said, why did y'all put a gun to my son's head? I just want to know. Why? That is a good young man. Why out here lying? He know, like we ain't together. We don't know our rights. So
They just know I'm 48, man. I don't do nothing.
I'm 42nd and James. Come on.
This is ridiculous, man.
Come on, so you can see.
Okay, bro.
Mom, Dad.
No, it's too much. Not this one. Not this one.
Okay. We can, First is good.
Just go run him and check and see. He's got a good CPR.
He ain't no threat. Was he black? Would you stop a white person like that? Would you stop a white person like that?
So stupid.
It's a gun to his head. Would you do that like that? It will not go down. This will not be a gun. They working a gun.
He's fine.
I don't want to touch him.
All right, I didn't say he loves it. Yeah, he's fine. He's sitting right there.
I don't want down my butt. He got a gun to my son's head. I get a phone call that y'all a gun to my son's head.
We didn't put a gun to his head. Okay, just
Oh, so
he's fine. He's fine. What happened? I'm dead.
Somebody rolled past and saw what they did.
He had a gun up in his glove box. He opened the center console and the gun was in there.
He black kid.
I know, but he didn't tell us that. Okay? So now he told us that. Listen, now he told us that
So why you pull a gun on him then?
because he reached for the gun. Okay?
What the hell?
He opened the center console and the gun was.
Open it up.
He didn't reach for the.
And he didn't do that.
Let me explain.
I don't want to hear no more.
If you would have told us that he had a CPL, we'd have been good, okay? He didn't tell us. He opened the center console to get his registration.
I do kind of feel like, that was kind of,
So you pick up
the way he was, like we were talking, I was giving you my information,
Listen,
and he did kind of like, before, we could actually even.
So, I'm going to kind of explain to you the process of it, okay? So, when we find an individual that has a gun, and we don't know about the gun, it's our response to kind of eliminate any potential, not necessarily eliminating the threat of, we're going to shoot you, but in order to kind of, if you would have reached for that gun.
With everything that's going on.
But that's a way to de-escalate the whole entire situation in order to gain control.
Okay? We don't know if he's a good kid. We don't know who he is at the time. Okay?
You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't ask.
Here, I'm talking to you. Here, please listen. So that's what we have to do when we see a gun, okay? We see a gun in the car. That's what we do.
Sure, 105, copy.
All right. We get him out. He's fine. We didn't throw him to the ground or anything like that. We got him out. We took the gun out, and then he told us he had a license. Okay.
105.
So we just took him out. He's fine. We're just talking to him. See, he's fine. We didn't put our hands on him at all. Okay. He's good. Ask him.
Are you okay? Did they harass you?
No, we didn't harass him. All right, look, I'm just trying to explain to you what happened, okay, man? So now, if he's got a good CPR, we just got to check him. We'll give him his gun back, and he'll be good. That's all. Okay. All right, that's it. We just didn't know. If he would have told us, my name's Chief Arrowwood. If he would have told us if he had a CPR to start,
you going to school?
Good, okay?
You full of shit.
Right.
Oh, where at?
Let's be a shit.
And I don't even
What'd you get up? What's your major?
No, don't walk up there.
I'm not walking nowhere. I'm walking to my car. You can't tell me I can't walk in the street.
What do you plan on doing with that degree?
Okay, have a nice day.
No kidding.
You have a nice day.
All right, have a nice day.
I ran it on
Well, run it over the radio. What are you trying to check, the CPL?
yeah. So
I'll show you.
sorry, I haven't done this yet.
Oh my lord.
She's something else, man. Station 30, 31, 60, copy of file for CPL. I'm trying to explain to him.
I explained it. Man.
Yeah, he's decent. It's scary.
Go ahead.
Last name Houston. H. Henry O. Ocean U uniform. S. Sam T. Tom O. Ocean and Nora. First name Stephen. S. Sam T. Tom E. Edward. You call H. Henry E. Edward and Nora. Middle name Gerard. J. John E. Edward. W. R. Robert O. Ocean B. David. Stephen Gerard Houston. Male 10/20/92. 10/20/1992. Oh, put the of course I'm gonna.
I got it.
Put the bullet. Don't hand him back the loaded gun, all right? Put the bullet lock. Put it in his glove box or something. Gun back in the center console or something. Don't hand him back the load. He's got anything else?
Nope.
Copy. Thanks.
All right. You want him to speak to? I'll take care of him. And
Go put it back in the car and I'll let him go.
Okay.
He's good, we're letting him go. You're the racist one.
I'm not racist at all.
You're the one that brought up race.
I'm not racist at all.
You're not.
You stop him and you search his car. You don't do that to one pull the gun on.
You don't think so?
And pull the gun on him.
You don't think we do that?
You go to hell. You go to hell.
Okay. Have a nice day.
We were 22nd and